What is your favorite piece of creepy folklore or legend? The Irish tale of Aparnatch or Vernock. The long and short of it is that there was but of a dwarf who ruled a kingdom in Ireland. When he died, everybody under his rule celebrated. That night his spirit went from house to house with a knife and a wooden bowl, harvesting the blood of the families he once ruled and drink it from the bowl in front of the children. Eventually a saint exorcised the spirit by burying the body under a large stone and pierces it with a hawthorn barb. Thing about it is that did not do the job. Not fully. Anyway, you can still find and visit the burial site. Two guys did and tried to cut down the hawthorn tree, and when they did, the chainsaw they were using broke and sent the chain into one man's arm. When this cut him open, he bled onto the stone and the stone absorbed all the blood. This thread has not been up for an hour, but I have a feeling you won this thread. That story is rock solid. Plot has a solid foundation. I used to always get creeped out by one my dad used to tell called the West Point Light. My father grew up along the Rappahannock River near Saluda, Virginia. There is a nearby town called West Point that we used to drive through on our way to the Urbana Oyster Festival every year. It was a family tradition for a lot of years and had been a big part of his teen early adult years too. Anyway, West Point is kind of industrial. It is where the York River and Mattapony meet, and there is a big paper mill and some train tracks for bringing in trees to turn into wood pulp. Anyway, the legend goes that on a foggy night in the 1880s, a train was coming through town when it suddenly derailed. The only casualty was a single crewman, who was decapitated in the accident. His head was found next to his still illuminated lantern. Nowadays, on humid, misty nights, people have reported seeing a mysterious light bobbing along the tracks. Some report it looks like a dim flashlight that will come and go as you watch it. The belief is that it is the crewman walking the tracks with his lantern searching for his missing head. My dad said he and his high school buddies went up to the tracks once to see if they could see the light, which they did. Promptly shat themselves and got the heck out of there. I grew up near there as well. It's always been a popular thing for teens to go park near the tracks and look for the lantern. The Wild Hunt or Ghost Riders. I'm an author, so I have been doing loads of research for my next book, and it is fascinating that there is a version of the hunt in nearly every culture. Some of my favorite bits are facts about how to avoid being taken by the hunt. See below. 1. If you hear the distant baying of hounds, it means they are close. If you are outside, get to the center of the road. 2. If you think the hunt is going to fly over your house, paint tar over your doorway. 3. If you hear the call of the hunt, never mimic it or call back, or you will get their attention. The hunt is drawn to disruptions in the landscape, new buildings in some cases. Sometimes it will come take every soul in a house, and people will find an entire family dead the next morning, without a mark on them. If you manage to trick the hunt out of taking your soul, you can often gain their favor, and they may give you gold, or a piece of their hunt. But even favors from the hunt can backfire, as one man was gifted such an enormous leg of venison from a high velocity, that it killed him instantly. There is loads more about it, and like I said, it is in nearly every corner of the world. And every story is a little different. Super interesting. There is an Alpine fairy tale about a shepherd who heard an owl while having some breakfast and decided to tease it by repeating its hoot and jokingly invite it to his table. Suddenly, an owl-headed man appeared with fierce yellow eyes and clawed hands and demanded food. He has been invited, so he needs to be treated as a guest, right? So the shepherd gave to the owl monster his breakfast. But he was still hungry. The shepherd offered all his milk, his cheese, his flour, sugar and other edible stuff. But the owl monster was insatiable. In the end, he devoured all the cows, goats and sheep and, still not full, decided to eat the shepherd himself. Only a prayer and the sign of the cross saved the man, and the horrible creature disappeared in hellish flames. And that's why you do not ever mock nocturnal animals. Sounds like I just need to memorize a prayer and keep a cross handy, then I can talk shit to any owl I want. The Lord is my light and my salvation, who shall I fear? Who off? Nice. Yo. I actually study stuff like this as a pastime, so if anybody wanted to let me know how to save or bookmark a thread on Reddit, I would greatly appreciate that. Till then, I can add in a local legend from the Ohio area in the good old US of A. There is this legend up here and in a couple of surrounding states of the Melonheads. They are these teeny tiny little dudes that live out in the forest and they have got absolutely massive heads. They kind of look like waterlogged children. Well, beyond that, every state's got a different take on the legend, so I will just tell the Ohio version. It starts in Cleveland, a bustling half metropolis on the edge of the sea like Lake Erie. Cleveland's played host to more than its fair share of serial killers, mysterious disappearances, and so Marvel movies. But the legend of the Melonhead starts in a little suburb on the outskirts of Cleveland called Kirkland. See, it was there that the enigmatic Dr. Crow pronounced Crow ran his orphanage in the 1950s. Due to the poor conditions of the orphanage and the even poorer conditions of the surrounding city, many of the children at this orphanage fell quite sick quite often. But Dr. Crow did not feel it was his duty to heal them. Instead, he used the guise of pediatrics to further his own experiments on the human brain. He injected the children's skulls with fluid and chemicals that he thought would facilitate rapid brain growth, like a sort of early puberty of the mind. It is worth noting some of these children already suffering from hydrocephalus. He would then subject the children to harsh, inhumane conditions that eventually led many of them to contracting a taste for human flesh. Amongst other things, Dr. Crow sought to learn which was the prevalent force in one's life, nature or nurture, the impulsive nature or the logical mind, the man or the monster. However, he would learn, as many did before him, that in the end, the only winners are the karmic forces of the universe. It was both their cunning and their ferocity that lead the Melonhead children to victory in their bloody revolt. They killed the horrible Dr. Crow and burnt his orphanage to the ground. Ever since then they have taken to the woods, unable to live in society, and, as a fun little moral for the kids, they are known to eat the flesh of children who are not appreciative of the privileges and luxuries they have in life. I have actually never been up to Kirkland to talk to anybody about this myth, which is weird cause I have gone to other places that were much further, but I have got a couple other good stories, both legends, and with my incredibly limited experience looking into them, if anybody wants to hear about it. Hey dude, just created a new channel called Our Creepy Folklegends, join me. Also, if you wanna save a post thread, just look at the top right of your screen. At least on mobile. I'll check on my laptop tomorrow for ya. Thanks man. I will check that place out. Hells yeah. See you there. This thread was just too good to not make into a channel. I felt deep responsibility to do so. Hard to choose. Le père fouetted maybe translates to whipping father or father whipper. Basicath French Krampus. But he killed 3 kids in the French legend of Saint Nicholas. He then put those kids' body parts into barrels, which he was gonna grind up and used to stuff into pies. Saint Nick found out and brought the kids back to life, and they popped out of their barrels naked as the day they were born, as Pee-wee Fouetted was pushing them in his cart across the town's market. Now he comes to bad kids on Christmas Eve and brings them coal, whips them and takes them home to make them his slaves eat them. He is a pretty scary dude in the traditional stories. There's got to be an easier way to get a meat pie. I'm thinking we open a barber shop or a burger place next to a funeral home. La Llorona, the ghost of a woman who haunts rivers and creeks crying for the children she murdered in revenge against a cheating husband. I grew up in the southwest and lived close to a river, so that one kind of stuck with me. I had a neighbor who would taunt my siblings and cousins whenever we were going to go play at the river. Do not let La Llorona get you. Thanks Gabby. Thanks a lot. I would act all tough, but this girl made damn sure none of us were at that river after sundown. Ever. I was also intrigued by Skinwalker's Law, but that one is really taboo among the Navajo, and it caused visible distress in the few people I asked about it, so I dropped it. I heard rumors growing up, but never really knew what to believe or not. And no, they are not werewolves like that terrible movie. Are not skinwalkers the ones that like rip off something's flesh and use it as a disguise? Kind of. In Navajo folklore, skinwalkers were shamans or witches that could turn into or possess an animal, and they are always harmful. Apparently, in order to become a skinwalker, you have to commit a heinous act like murder a family member or partake in incest or something. The folklore around skinwalkers is pretty interesting. My father served an LDS mission in Tuba City in the late 80s and came back with a plethora of those stories. He was also a scout master for years as well, and was fond of telling these stories to his scouts, and they were eager to listen, much to the detriment of their sleep that night. The man knows how to spin a yarn. The Buniop. Similar to the Japanese kappa, it's an Australian cryptid that lurks in mostly still bodies of water such as billabongs. They wait for livestock or people to wander close to the water, grab them, drown them and eat them. They are also said to have an ear-piercing scream that they sometimes use to stun prey. The most common way of telling if a Buniop is inhabiting a billabong is if you feel a sudden sense of dread or foreboding as you approach the water. That's the Buniop watching you. I kinda like the design of kappas, but hate their lore and what the deuce are edendi. Kappas, Frillish, and Buniop can all go to hell, those little drown happy bastards. In Sweden we have a folklore about a mythical creature called Skogsra or Huldren. Skog means forest and Ra means warden or keeper of something in Swedish. It takes the shape of a beautiful woman, but her back is either hollow, the story I grew up with, or has a tail. She is also described as flirty and are known to seduce men. But back in the days the most important and prominent part of her story was her being the ruler of the forest. In some stories she can be helpful depending on her mood. For example, if a child is lost she can help the child find his way back. She can also grant a hunter luck. But the most common story is that if someone follows her into the woods that person is never to be seen again. Guess she is a hollowback girl after all. Living near Indian reservations always had me terrified of skinwalkers. So driving up to the mountains where I live, you have to drive through the reservation on the highway, and typically during the day it's always fine, but at night during that portion of the drive everything is still and so eerie. You always see coyotes or wolves. I am just expecting to look over one day and see one hop up on two legs and sprint towards me like the T-1000. The legend of the Sylvan. The legend tells that a spoiled young man wanted to eat offal, but there was no, so his father went to hunt deer to please his son. Was so much delay that he himself went to see what happened to his father. So he went out to hunt. On the way he sees that his father had not managed to hunt anything, and in his anger kills him. The son kills the father and takes out his organs and takes them to his mother to cook them. When he was cooking, the organs were strange, and his mother, seeing that his father did not return, asked him what had happened. Realizing that he had killed him, was cursed and condemned to wander the plains. Dogs chased him, and he got lost. He became a tall, very tall, human-shaped creature. He carries a sack in which he counts the bones of the victim, and that can be heard because he stops near the houses. Also a whistle, hence its name, the Sylvan. The louder it is heard, the farther away it is. The softer it is heard, the closer it is. It likes to attack drunks. Where is this folk tale from, good sire? Venezuela. In Malaysia. These are my two favorites. The first one is the beetle cuning, which translates to the yellow beetle. There is this highway in Malaysia that's known for being haunted. So if you go on this highway at the right time, typically very late at night, you can see an old Volkswagen Beetle. The Beetle has no driver when you look at it, and if you overtake the nettle you will see it again. So what you are supposed to do is just do not overtake it. The second one is the Wanata Kebaimera, translates to the women in the red kebaya. Kebaya is a traditional dress for women. So a lot of taxi drivers has had this happen to them. A beautiful woman in a red kebaya dress sits beside the road and gets into the taxi without speaking. She hands the taxi driver a note with a location. She does not speak at all for the whole ride. When he arrives at the destination, she hands him some money and walks out and slams the taxi door. The next day the taxi driver decided to go see the location. Since it was night and he could not really see it, he found out that the location that the women gave him was a graveyard. Edit, thanks for the upvotes. This is the most I have gotten for any of my comments. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.